Valnir history of the island. The creation myth of Valgardia, the world between. The great sun burned, alone in the universe, growing and raging ever more fiercely until the last. It cracked open like an egg and three gods emerged. There were Jagdraw, god of battle, power and ambition. Trishul, god of forge, invention, trade and cunning. And Kurska, goddess of hearth and home, agriculture, fertility, sex and love. The broken pieces of the great sun became the new sun, the moon, and the stars and the earth. The gods working together. The gods breathed life into two stars, and these became the giant Gulnir, Yeller, and Mulda clay. The gods set the giants to work shaping the world. Gulnir built the plains, hills, and mountains. Mulda created the grasses, the plants, and the animals which roam the earth. So busy was Mulda creating the beautiful things in the world that she did not notice Gulnir, even though he was in love with her. And so Gulnir took a handful of clay from the earth and crafted a horn, which he blew with all his might, that Mulda might look up from her work and notice him. Hearing the horn's long and pure notes, Mulda looked up and saw Gulnir and fell in love with him. The elves. The giants begat 4 children. The first 2 were twins, a girl, Fala, lass, and a boy, Oski, wished for. Golden-haired, beautiful elves. They were so lovely that their mother shed tears of joy over the land, and so grew the forests and the crops. Fala and Oski were proud and vain, and would spend the days admiring their own reflections in the lakes and still pools formed by their mother's tears. Gulnir and Mulda's 3rd child was a dark-haired elven girl, Fima, a young girl, whose heart was wicked, yet her mother and father loved her. One day Fima, envious of her much-loved siblings, turned the twins' standing pool to ice and smashed it so that they would no longer be able to admire themselves. Each shard of the broken ice contained an image of the twins, and these shards became the race of the elves. The dwarves and mankind. The giant's 4th child was a dwarf, Itri, poisonous, who was stunted and ugly in his parents' eyes, but honest and true of heart. So sad was Mulda at the sight of Itri that she wept enough tears to create the oceans, and thus did Valnir. Their home become an island far from the other land. And so ashamed were Gulnir and Mulda that their malformed child that they banished him to live underground, where they would not have to look at him. Using the gifts of the earth industrious Itri learnt to forge and craft. From iron ore he forged the first blade, and with this knife he cut his own flesh, whereby each droplet of his blood grew into a dwarf. Thus was the race of the dwarven begun. Man by incest. Knowing her brother's fame as a goldsmith, Fala would have Itrik craft for her a necklace to match her own beauty, and so she went deep into the caves to find him. Having been banished long ago, Itri had never lain with a woman, and when he saw Fala, he was awestruck by her beauty and filled with lust. He agreed to forge the beautiful golden necklace for Fala, on the condition that she lie with him. Fala was disgusted at the thought, yet her greed was great, and she lay with her brother. From this sinful incestuous act between elf and dwarf were born 2 children. I'm not going to even try to pronounce either of these 2. Blodstrajnar, Jarna, and Morgan Unstrana. Okay, whatever. These were the first humans. However, the giant Valnir was appalled by his children's incest and threatened to kill their human progeny. Fearing for her children, Fala gathered them up and set them upon her father's huge shield. Then, with her mother Molda's help, she took them to the shore where, tears in her eyes, she pushed the raft out to sea to drift on the oceans. The dragons. Fema watched all this from her hiding place amongst the thorns, and confronted her mother and sister, threatening to tell her father that what they had done. Molda struck Fema for impertinence, and in her fury Fema unleashed all of her power and turned her mother and Fala and even her brothers Oski and Itri into dragons. So furious were they that they flew over Valnir in their new and terrible forms and rained fire upon the island, killing elves and dwarves alike and razing cities to the ground. Eventually, when there was nothing living upon which to vent their wrath, the dragons Fala, Oski, and Itri turned upon each other and fought until all lay dead. Drekberg. When Valnir learned what Fema had done to his beloved wife and children, and saw the destruction that they had wrought, he took his sword and thrust it into his own chest, then lay down to die. In death, Valnir became the mountain. Molda, his dragon wife, flew into the wound, and in that dark, lifeless cave she folded her great wings about herself, closed her fiery eyes, and her own heart beating still, slept 1,000 years. But now all is not well on Valnir. Many believe that the 3 gods, Yagjar, Drashul, Kurska, have forsaken the island. Foul creatures prey on the unwary. The dead leave their burial mounds and walk again. There are even rumors of fire from the sky and folk being turned into ash. The future of men. Perhaps mankind is the architect of his own doom. For years, goddess such as Shafinger, the tormented high priest of Egas Al, have aspired to bring the gods back. The kings and jarls of the cities and clans demand that their priests summon the gods so that they, with their help, they might assert their dominance over Valnir, that they might rule supreme, and by meddling in ancient magic, who knows what dark evil these men are bringing back into the light. There are even rumors of Trefinger, the tormented, has deciphered the ancient elvish spells. There are whispers that he has succeeded in summoning a lesser elven god from the other realm, and that the presence of this god has unleashed a more powerful evil still. Will Valnir be ruled by the harbingers of evil? Will it be consumed by vengeful fire? Or are there still those with courage enough to stand tall, sword in hand, and say, "We shall endure"?